Hi, welcome to Chapter 2, the shoulder. We are going to be beginning with superficial muscles of the shoulder in this unit, and then later on in the program, we will be talking about deeper muscles of the shoulder. Before we get to muscles, however, we need to talk about the bones and bony landmarks of the shoulder. When we talk about muscles, we put them on the bones, specifically at certain places, like this one right here, this border right here, this border right here, this fossa right here. So we really need to have our bones and bony landmarks set before we move on to the muscles. So having said that, right now we're going to talk a little bit about the shoulder girdle. Your book also calls it the shoulder complex. Sometimes it's called the pectoral girdle. It's all the same thing. It is a combination of three bones. It is the clavicle or collarbone, as you might have heard it referred to, the humerus, which is the upper arm bone, and the scapula. I am going to share the screen so that we can see this whole area in 3D. Actually, I'm going to go back one. There we go. That's the one I want. There we go. I was a little ahead of myself. Okay, this is your visible body courseware. So you sign up for the program, you get your books, but you also get visible body. When you make an account for yourself and you join my class, then you have access to all of this. And what's really cool about visible body is that it is not only 3D, whoa, but you can move it in any direction you choose. Now I have a touch screen, so I'm using my touch screen. However, you can very easily use a mouse, okay? I will show you a few of the features of visible body so that we can get started. And then, along the way, I'll show you a few more features, and especially when we start to get into muscles and muscle layers, we'll need to move things around and hide certain things and see deeper things. And again, that'll be a little bit later. So this is the pectoral girdle or shoulder girdle, right? It said they are interchangeable. So if you click on anything here, it turns it blue and then shows you what it is here. This is the clavicle, right? Absolutely. If you need it pronounced, that's this button right here. And if you want to learn more about it, that's this button. It looks like an open book, so it tells you more about this particular bone. In this case, it is the clavicle. You click off of it, it takes it away. Over here, if I click on any one of those, it will show me the bones that I asked for, okay? Clavicles, scapulae, that's plural, okay. But for now, I'm just gonna turn them back around, okay? And then later we might use the fade, the hide, fade others, or hide others feature. And these tools over here are really for me right now. So the shoulder girdle is made up of the clavicle, right? Clavicle, the humerus bone, and the scapula. It also has several joints because this is a girdle, so it goes around the body. It has to have articulation points. Remember, articulation is a joint. The first articulation point is this one right here. This particular joint, use my tools for a second, is where the clavicle articulates with the sternum. So this right here, I'm coloring it in, not very effectively, that's the sternum. It's the hard bone in the anterior chest. It's basically attachment for ribs and things like that. So the clavicle articulates with the sternum. And if we remember our anatomical terms and our combining forms from way back last chapter or last unit, what we basically do is we drop the last letter, we add an O, and then we slam the two words together. And that's what we do here. So in this case, this joint is called the sternoclavicular joint. So I took the word sternum, dropped the last letter, added an O, smashed it together with clavicle, and it is the sternoclavicular joint. That's the first point of attachment here. The second point of attachment is right here. This one right there. This one is called the acromioclavicular joint. So I still used a combining form, acromioclavicular. This bit right here is called the acromion process. It's a landmark of the scapula, or it's a sticky outy thing on the scapula. So when you put it together with a clavicle, it makes acromioclavicular. So this is the acromioclavicular joint right there. Now, the last part of this, I'm going to take the humerus away here for a second. We're going to hide it. The last part of this, where the pectoral girdle attaches to the body, is back here. But as you can see, there's a space between the scapula, which is this bone right here, and the ribs. Since there's a space here, that means that these two bones don't connect directly, which means that it is not a true joint. It is not a true articulation. What happens in between here is that it's filled with muscle. The muscle connects the bones, well, the scapula specifically, to the posterior ribs. It holds it in place, essentially, but it is not a true joint. However, it is called the scapulothoracic joint. So we have scapula, and then the rib cage and the chest is called the thorax. Scapulothoracic joint. But I wanted to mention very specifically that it is not a true joint. And again, if we come back over here, you can see that there's a big space in between the scapula and the rib cage, okay? So when you see that in print, it's not a true joint. The true joints are, what's this one again? That's right, sternoclavicular joint, and this one. What's that one? The acromioclavicular joint. Excellent. Excellent. All right, so let's put the humerus back on here. Ta-da. Oh, where'd it go? Oops, show. Show. All right, well, whatever. We'll show the humerus over here, that's fine. Okay, so the humerus is part of the shoulder girdle. However, this particular joint right here, where the humerus articulates with the scapula, is the shoulder joint, okay? So it's a little bit different. We have the whole shoulder girdle or pectoral girdle, but then this one right here is the shoulder joint, where the humerus articulates with the scapula. This joint is called the glenohumeral joint. And the reason is because this piece right here, and I'll show you over here on the screen, this bit right here is called the glenoid fossa, or just glenoid is fine. This piece right here is called the glenoid, and it articulates with the humerus, hence glenohumeral joint. Now that's this one. That's your shoulder joint. It is a synovial joint and it's a ball and socket joint, so it is freely movable. And that basically is the shoulder girdle. We're going to go into more detail about the scapula and its landmarks and about the humerus and its landmarks in subsequent videos. One last thing I do want to mention, the clavicle. The clavicle is the first bone to ossify or to begin ossifying. Let me clarify. The clavicle is the first bone to begin ossifying, which means that it's hardening. It's putting down new bone. When you are an infant, your bones are still very soft, and they're soft so that you could come through the birth canal without breaking anything. But once you're on the outside, your bones have to harden, and the clavicle is the first one to begin doing this. But the clavicle is the last one to finish hardening. So this bone takes a long time to fully ossify. It is a thin, small bone, as you can see right here. It's pretty thin, and most clavicles are. Some people have larger ones, but most clavicles are thin and long. And so it does not take a whole lot to break a clavicle. Perhaps you know someone, or perhaps you yourself have broken a clavicle before. It doesn't take that much pressure. In fact, just a simple fall on an outstretched arm can break the clavicle. So fun facts about the clavicle: can break rather easily and is the first bone to begin ossifying and the last bone to finish ossifying. These are family and friends with clavicle facts. Okay, so the next video is going to be the scapula.